Okay, today we're going to look at direct and indirect objects. For direct objects, what really matters is our action verb here. There are many different types of verbs. Action verbs are the ones that express physical or mental action, so things like run, walk, think, those sorts of verbs. Now, some verbs are going to complete the sentence by themselves. I think, I run, I believe. But others are going to pass the action to some other element in the sentence, and that other element is the object. If you have a sentence that has a direct object, it's because it has what's called a transitive verb. We're passing on and answering the question either what or whom. In the first example, you can see it says, the class is planning a trip. Class is planning is our subject and verb. Trip is the thing that they are planning. So that's our direct object. It is the what they are planning. When you diagram a sentence that has a direct object, you're going to have your subject and predicate on the horizontal line like we've been working on. Class is planning with the underneath. For the trip, you're going to do a half of a vertical line only on the top half and put the direct object on the right-hand side. You're going to continue doing adjectives and perhaps adverbs exactly as we were before, where you're just putting them on a diagonal that slants from the left down to the right-hand side. So try these two and then unpause the video to check your work. For the first one, class members are considering various destinations. Members are considering is your subject and your verb. Class members is an adjective, or class is an adjective describing the members. Destinations is what they are considering, which means that's a direct object. Various is an adjective, which is describing the destination. So to diagram this one, we're going to have members are considering. Destinations are the thing that they're considering, so we're going to put a part of a line just on the top half, and then destinations underneath. Various is going to go underneath destinations because it's the adjective describing which destinations, and class is going to go under members because it's describing which members we're talking about. In the second one, they may rent a bus. They is our subject, may rent is our verb, bus is the direct object, the thing that is being rented. So we are going to have they may rent on our line as normal, our subject and our predicate. Then we're going to extend the horizontal line, put half of a vertical, and bus to the right of that half vertical line with the A describing the bus underneath. Now with indirect objects, if you have a sentence that is also answering the question to whom or what, or for whom or what, we're talking about an indirect object. Now most of the time, almost always, if you have an indirect object, you're also going to have a direct object. If we're looking at sentence patterns here, we're talking about SVOO, subject, verb, indirect, and direct object. Whereas before, when we were just talking about direct objects, we were talking about SVO, subject, verb, direct object. So if you look at this first example, the travel agency sent the curious students information. The agency sent is our subject verb. The information is the thing that's being sent, so that's our direct object, and it's being sent to the students. So students is our indirect object. Now when we diagram this, agency sent information, that's our subject, verb, and direct object. The indirect object is going to go underneath of the verb. And notice how this is diagrammed. You're going to have a diagonal line that's parallel with any adjectives or adverbs that you have. We have two adjectives here. And then from that parallel diagonal, you're going to extend a horizontal line to the right and write the indirect object on it. Underneath, you can put any adjectives or adverbs you have, just like we've been doing before. Now, something I want to point out here is that I am not writing the indirect object on this diagonal line. It must go on the horizontal part. When things get a little bit more complicated later, other stuff is going to go on that diagonal, so leave space there. Why don't you try these two and then unpause the video when you're ready to check your work. All right, so for the first one, most airlines charge customers high prices. Airlines charge is our subject and verb. They are charging high prices, so that's our direct object. High is describing the prices. Customers are the people who are being charged the prices, so that's an indirect object. When we diagram this one, we have airlines charge with the most under airlines. And the prices, our direct object, is going to go on that horizontal with the half line separating it. High goes underneath price because it's describing the prices. And the indirect object, customers, is going to go off of a diagonal with a horizontal. Customers is going to go down on that horizontal, leaving this vertical as it is. In the second one, a local company may give us a better deal. Company, may give, is our subject verb. Deal is the direct object because it's the thing being given, and it's being given to us, so that is your indirect object. When we diagram this one, we have company, may give, as your subject and predicate. A and local go under company. The deal is the direct object, so it's going to go over to the right with the half vertical. A and better both go on diagonals under deal because they are the adjectives. And us, the indirect object, is the, who is receiving the giving, so we're going to go a diagonal that's parallel to our others, and then a horizontal with us on that horizontal. Now you can have objects that have compound elements. So for example, students researched transportation schedules and prices. Students researched is our subject and verb, so it's going to be diagrammed just like normal, but this time when we get to the direct object, we have three direct objects: transportation, schedules, and prices. We're going to use our three-prong fork this time because we have three things that are direct objects. And notice you still have the dotted line with the conjunction holding all three together. With indirect objects, you're also going to use the prong effect, but this time it's going to come off of that horizontal that comes off of the diagonal. So in the example, some resources gave us and our teachers useful facts. We have resources gave as our subject and verb, facts as the direct object, and us and our teachers are the two indirect objects that are receiving the useful facts. So when we diagram this, we have our diagonal line that's parallel with our adjective and adverb lines, the beginnings of a horizontal line, but then it splits off into the two prongs of our fork for us and teachers, with the dotted line, our conjunction, and any adjectives that go along with it. Go ahead, pause, try these two. In the first one, we have the committee contacted hotels and campgrounds. So that's two direct objects. So when we diagram this one, we are going to have our half vertical, and then we're going to, as we go out, branch into our direct object, compound direct object. So hotels is going to go on the top, campground is going to go on the bottom. We've got lots of adjectives to add, so this is Zoltan's committee. We have several hotels, and don't forget about that conjunction on the dotted line. We have a campground. In the second one, the operators sent Zoltan and his committee useful information. Information is our direct object. Zoltan is an indirect object, and committee is an indirect object. So when we diagram this one, we have operators sent. Our direct object is information. And then because we have two indirect objects, when we come down off of our diagonal, we are going to go a little horizontal and then break off into the two prongs. The top is for Zoltan, the bottom is for committee, and then you would need to go through and add in all of your adjectives too. So you have the, you have your conjunction and on the dotted line, and the information is useful. So that goes there. Oh, we also have a his, so don't forget about that. Now, it's possible to have compound verbs with our objects as well. So if you look at the first one, it says students read and compared schedules. So because this one has two verbs and only one direct object, when you get into the verb section after the large vertical line, you're going to separate for your two prongs, and then because you have to keep going to diagram this direct object, you're going to bring the two prongs back together and continue with your horizontal line, with the half line for the direct object schedules to follow. If you have a sentence where after our two verbs you have two separate direct objects, like in this next one, students read a novel and told Miss King their reactions, you are not going to join it like we did in the first one. In this one, you have students read and told. So we're going to break for that read and told with our conjunction holding them together. But because we're reading a novel, that's a direct object, and we're telling reactions, that's a direct object, we're going to continue those lines and have two separate direct object branches. Now, the second one, told Miss King their reactions, also has an indirect object. So off of told, we have Mrs. King. And then, of course, you have your adjectives as normal. Go ahead and try these two, then unpause to check your work. In the first one, passengers boarded the aircraft and took their seats. We have the passengers boarding and taking. So when we diagram this one, we are going to need to have that prong going two directions for our predicate. So we need one that says boarded and one that says took. Now they're boarding the aircraft and they're taking seats. So that's two separate direct objects. So we're going to continue these on and have the half line on the split between the verb and the direct object. So on the top one we have aircraft, on the bottom one we have seats, and then we go back and add in our conjunction and along with our adjectives the and their. In the second one, Amos dragged and pushed his heavy suitcase. We have a subject and two verbs, but this time only one direct object. It's being both dragged and pushed. So to diagram this one, we're going to need to go back together after this pronged split. We have dragged and pushed, back together for the suitcase. And again, we're going to have our half line, then suitcase, with our adjectives underneath, heavy, his and heavy. All right, I'd like for you to try these two on a sheet of notebook paper and bring them into class. We are going to start with these, and I'll be coming around to check that you have these three sentences diagrammed. So take a few minutes to do that now.